going to start. Amy can join us whenever she's there. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first curriculum meeting, at least which is chaired by me. We have a new committee. There's Sean, who's new to this role, and there's Amy Casey, who's new to the board itself, and Rachel and I have been part of this even last year. So I did send everybody a quick note, especially for Amy, Sean, and Rachel, just to give you a little broad overview and scope of this committee. Because this is a first meeting, we're just going to do a light meeting. And as we get more comfortable in our role, if you have questions, if you want to develop agenda items, please email them to me, Dr. De Silva or Corey, and we will work with you. Because everybody on RPS has this is a work day for them, we will have a hard stop. If at any committee meeting, you have questions that are not answered, you feel strongly about a topic, we can always come back to them. So we will just try to keep the time in mind. With that, I'm just going to give it over to Corey to introduce the curriculum department.
All right, good morning, everybody. So my name is Corey Gillette. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, and I'm going to let the team introduce themselves, starting with elementary and then secondary and then tech.
Good morning, everyone. It's Linda Johnson, Director of Elementary Education. I'm looking forward to our meetings this year.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Jeff Corbishley. I'm the 612 Math and Science Supervisor here in the Curriculum Department.
Good morning, everybody. Annie Tucci, 612 Humanities.
And hi, I'm Dr. Wes DeSantis. I'm the Director of Educational Technology for Ridgefield Public Schools.
Okay. Tina, do you want me to proceed with the agenda?
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Great. Okay, so we have 4 agenda items today. We're going to introduce the curriculum department. Then we're going to talk about our district priorities for the year. And then we're going to take you through, since it is our first meeting of the year, we're going to take you through the curriculum revision process. And we're going to end with an update on the work that we've done so far with the essential departments, the K-12 essential departments. So we thought it was important, back to the first slide, please, John, to just start with an introduction, not just to who the members of the curriculum department are, but a little bit about their roles and open it up to a conversation. Just to give you a little bit of history, as part of the fiscal year 22 budget, a new position was made, and that is the Director of Elementary. That's Linda Johnson's role. So this role didn't exist before, and in her current role, Linda supervises, evaluates, and manages a variety of program aspects related to teaching and learning and assessment in coordination with our 6 elementary principals across all content areas and essentials. So this is a new role for us, and Linda helps our district priority, which you'll see in the next part of our presentation in the committee meeting today, by coordinating the work among the 6 Ls. And like I said, this is a new role. And then we have 2 other roles in our department that were reorganized from the past. So instead of having a K-12 math science supervisor, we now have a 612 math science supervisor. Instead of a K-12 humanities supervisor, we have a 612. And this really allows these roles to have the opportunity to get into schools, to be present in the meetings, to work with the principals at that level, supervise the content areas. So for Jeff Corbishley, that's supervising the math and science departments, to help improve teaching and learning, and to have that 612 view of a content area in coordination with Linda Johnson, who's doing that work at the elementary level. So it really gives us the capacity to engage closely with teachers and departments and our building leaders in moving forward district priorities and department priorities. And then, of course, we have another member of our department, the Director of Educational Technology. Now, everyone knows Dr. DeSantis, and he is tech everything, but there is a part of his role beyond making sure that we all have access to high quality technology that works and supports us in our everyday teaching and learning and organizing a district, but he also has a component of his job that supports the curriculum development connected to technology and connected to digital citizenship. And I know that anyone who's watched recent Board of Ed meetings, especially starting, I believe, in the late spring, early summer, they saw the proposal that we've been working off of for how students build their digital citizenship through their relationship with their device. So moving into one-to-one, and then at what grade do students get to take those computers home? That's a higher level of digital citizenship, which starts at grade 4, and then getting to the high school where students get to choose their own device if they wish. So along with that work and that process, that trajectory from K to 12, Dr. DeSantis supports the curriculum and the development of the curriculum that makes all of those pieces come together. And of course, we also know that there's almost every single tool we have in curriculum has a technology component to it these days. So Dr. DeSantis does play 2 roles, but it is a very important role that he plays in the curriculum department. And you'll hear when we talk about essentials, how his work with the library media specialists and their curriculum across the levels is really important to the overall curriculum experience for kids. So that is an overview of our department. So we can take down the slide and see if we have any questions.
I can't see everyone. So anyone questions? Amy, Sean, Rachel? Okay. Go ahead, Corey.
Team, is there anything you want to add about your positions perhaps that would be helpful for the committee to know?
I mean, Corey, I might just jump in and just share, you described how the K-12 role turned into a 6-12 role. And I just want to emphasize how by doing so, it really allows for a much closer look and much deeper involvement within the specific departments. So that means alignment between schools. So like your Eastridge and Scotchridge, we are able to really look at aligning our curricular, our instructional practices, our assessment philosophies, again, in consultation with our department leaders and building principals. And then we're also really focused on that transition area from 8 to 9. And then I know Corey mentioned this, but really working closely with Linda and having her be that K-5 specialist, being able to look at that transition from 5 to 6, because we know whenever there's a building change or a level change, there is a transitional element. And so our work here in the curriculum department is to ensure that those are as smooth as possible and to make sure that our curriculum and our instructional practice are aligned K-12. So I just wanted to give a little bit more background on that.
And I do want to add that it is a strong belief in this department that for us to do a good job, we need to be in schools often. And the team here, we spend as much time as possible in schools. And Jeff, Annie, Linda, and Wes too are in schools every single day. Because that is where we get the insights. And that is, in my past experience, where things can go awry when there's a disconnection between the central office team and the building teams. And because we're in there, in the buildings every day, building relationships with departments, leaders, building leaders, we can hear their insights and make adjustments and adjust priorities in ways that we wouldn't if we were always sitting here at our desks. So I do want you to know that the way that these roles have changed has really given us that opportunity. And it's also something that we all really believe in, and in our experience in the past have found success. Because implementation is not just pretty paper, and we can make really pretty documents. It's really, implementation happens on the ground, and we are there with our teachers, and it continues to be a goal of ours to build a really strong partnership that's honest and open and responsive to the needs that are there. Go ahead, Linda.
I'll add on just a little bit about my work in terms of our early learning program, our preschool programs up at Barlow Mountain. That is a big part of my work, as well as working with in the kindergarten through fifth grade curriculum areas. I do collaborate very closely with Christina Salvestrini, our director of preschool. We're studying and looking at our Connecticut early learning and development standards and how they align to our curriculum and how we can best support our teachers and our students in that preschool program.
And if it's okay, I will add one more thing. So our partnerships with our building principals and leadership teams, including the department leaders at the high school, middle school, have been invaluable with supporting the teachers this year. And we are in constant contact with them, and that communication has become very natural to be able to talk and support one another. So I think it's created a really nice learning community for, for us as the content specialists and in our fields, that they feel supported as well. So it's become a very positive relationship between both locations.
And I think Cora did a great job explaining my position. But yeah, and one thing I really love about my position is I'm able to be in the buildings a lot and connect with all of the building leadership, and that informs my pathways in deploying technology to Ridgefield. So it's one day it's like we're figuring out how to lay fiber line between buildings, and another day I'm meeting with elementary art teachers to figure out how we can do like digital art in the classroom and support them properly. So it's a great role. I get to work very closely with Linda, Annie, and Jeff, and of course Corey. But a big component of this job too is working with special ed, which is it's a big component of any district now, but understanding how that technology fits in to both the student need and the teacher's need within the classroom. So it's a wide ranging bandwidth, but it takes a village. So I want people to know that a lot of people were involved to make this run so well.
Amy, Rachel, Sean, any questions for the team, the role of the team?
No questions. Just, I said it before, I'll say it again. I'm just happy to see us investing in curriculum again. It's been a long time coming, and the new organization seems effective and right-sized.
Agreed. I think I've borrowed your lines a few times at another meeting too. So yes, totally agree. Amy, you're new. Do you want to add anything? Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions about roles, although I do maybe have a question for Wes.
Is she frozen or is it me?
Yeah, no, she froze.
Yeah. And it was right at the question.
I know. Oh, there you're back. Amy, you froze for a minute.
And now I think you're muted, Amy.
And have homework assigned where they would use Chromebooks. What is the expectation of what they're supposed to do about that?
Amy, you broke up. You froze in the middle. So could you repeat that, please? Thank you.
Sorry, I have a terrible connection here in my house. I know you've mentioned before that Chromebooks for students K through 3 stay at school. And I'm just wondering, for those students who are assigned homework where they might be using programs that are on their Chromebook, what is the expectation of how they're supposed to do that homework?
The expectation is supposed to be any homework that is given. The idea of K through 3 is reduced screen time. So, I mean, the idea is supposed to be homework should be either done in a way that you don't need a screen. And this is why the Chromebooks stay in the classroom. I don't know if a teacher might be doing a certain project where, maybe you could take it home for the one night. I don't know if that's happening. But we're really big on K through 3 on the reduction of screen time. It's important that they have access to these devices. It's important that the devices can be deployed quickly if there needs to be a distance learning scenario that's implemented. But we've been talking with the teachers that the idea of this is a reduced screen time view of using these devices.
I think to, dovetail off Amy's question and might benefit the committee and parents, it would be good if we could bring back the homework policy, just share with community what our homework, that we do have a homework policy, what it looks like, expectations. I mean, of course, there are things that'll, a teacher has the liberty or the freedom to choose to do something different, but it just might help us to have these conversations again so that everybody can review and understand this. We have more and more parents are paying attention to what's happening with homework and screen time and all that. So I think this is a great time to bring it up. And the fact that you as a department are very cognizant of the fact that screen time is relevant to younger minds. And I think also with the high school, I mean, my high schooler gets the H1, H2, H3 policy, but there are a lot of parents who need to understand that beyond the children. So I think it's something we can bring later to an agenda item, if that's okay, Corey. Okay, Rachel, any question? All right, moving on, Corey.
Okay, next slide. John, slide 2, please. Thank you. So just to continue our introduction, we wanted to talk to you quickly about our district priorities. And you've heard us talk about these through the budget process and through Board of Ed meetings. And I know we're going to come back to them soon to update the community on where we are with these priorities. But we just thought we would spend a few minutes today as part of the work to set up this committee for the year talking about these. Our main priority, as you can see, is around creating that equitable, aligned, high quality experience for all students, PK-12. And we've already done a variety of things to make this possible. And you heard about some of these structures in the spring when we got here. And that, as simple as having a common website for teachers to access curriculum, a common drive, so that if somebody leaves, we don't lose units of study, and collaborative time for departments to work together to create those short-term and long-term goals. And this fall and the Board of Ed, you've heard some of the impact of that work, the K-12 music department, the world language department, and then recently Linda and Annie presented with a K-12 team on writing instruction in Ridgefield Public Schools, because that's another area. So it's not just that we're collaborating across departments, we're also looking at a skill such as writing and studying how we're teaching it across the levels so that we can focus on that alignment. So when we're saying equitable, aligned, really that's what we mean. So it doesn't matter if you're in elementary school A or elementary school B or middle school A or B, that you're getting these assured experiences. We want all students to benefit from the high quality experiences in one classroom. We don't want it to be isolated. We want it to be shared. And again, the positions that we talked about earlier are helping bring that into fruition. So Wes, I'm just going to have you quickly talk about priority number 2 because it's technology related.
Hi, sorry that the sun is like, if I keep moving my position, I'm going to be over to the corner, or if I look like I'm very relaxed, it's only because I'm getting blinded by the sun. Yeah, so basically if you remember from people who are either currently watching this or members of the board right now, one of my biggest asks in the budget season was we did a bunch of audits of both essentials. We have extracurriculars. We have a lot of programs in the district that have been started through funding, whether it be Perkins or other grants. And now that funding has been retired at some point, many, many years, one of the big things is we're looking at ways to, we don't want to maybe just buy new things. We want to either be innovative, but then there's just certain things that need to be upgraded. And those things, I'm working with those building leadership, the teacher leaders, to move all that forward. On top of that, we are building in a system for one-to-one. And you've heard earlier, Corey mentioned about digital citizenship, where we built in K-3, beginning, then you have 4 through 8, where they have a device and it's different levels of digital citizenship. Then of course, advanced digital citizenship at the high school where they can BYOD, bring their own device. But it doesn't just end there. We're looking at other ways to integrate career technology education at the high school level, and maybe at some point down the road, maybe trickle that into the middle school level. These are, a lot of things fall under that umbrella. we have engineering, robotics, family consumer science, business. There's a lot of things that are going on in the career technology environment that I think we need to have more robust pathways at the high school level. We're really beginning it now, but we want to support those initiatives. And on top of that is, I think before Corey even said it, that a lot of the technology for curricular tools are all technology based, right? And this is why we've moved a lot of services to curriculum, because just because a math textbook is digital doesn't mean technology needs to be the arbiter of that, right? That would be Jeff and Corey. But I work with them to see what are the best digital resources, what are the best digital tools. We're currently looking at resources right now for digital citizenship, curricular tools to be a way to develop a digital citizenship curriculum K through 12. We kind of shot technology out of a cannon at kids during COVID, right? It's just like everything was under emergency situation. We just kind of deployed it and hope for the best. Now that things are, knock on wood, calming down, we want to have a more robust reaction to how do we teach children how to interact with technology? How do we make the technology work for them and them not work for the technology? How do we give them good stewardship of how they put their digital footprint out there? Why do social media companies do X, Y, and Z? And why should I make these decisions? Right down to, at the elementary level, what looks safe, what looks unsafe. Those are the types of lessons that we want to start training our students. And, we want to start them young, but we are in the infant stages of beginning that process. The first process was to get the tech to begin with. And now that we're getting it, hopefully we're going to start moving forward with figuring out those curricular resources.
Thank you, Wes. And Wes, you already started talking about priority 4, which is making sure that as we're doing this work and as we're collaborating, that we're also keeping our eyes on innovation and learning from other districts, perhaps even other countries, and seeing what they're doing that connects to some of the needs that we're seeing. And Wes, I feel like you just talked about that quite well when you're talking about your priority in terms of technology, robotics, coding, other STEM work. What could we do that we're not doing, especially at the middle school level? And then priority 3 is the question that we want to ask ourselves. Since we've focused so much on social emotional learning and the whole child, what we need to do is take a look at what we currently have in place. What tools are we using to support students in their relationships with each other, in managing their own emotions? We use a tool called Ruler from Yale. Responsive Classroom is an approach that we use. And we want to see if those are effective. Are they creating those welcoming learning environments for all that we are hoping for? So that is the connection to priority 3. But really, they all fall under that equitable, aligned, and high quality experience for all students. Thank you, John. We're done with that. So that was our overview of what we've been working on this year. Any questions?
Sean, Amy, Rachel, I keep calling on you guys, but if you have questions, please.
Seems pretty clear here.
Okay. So really very connected to that goal of ours, that central goal of ours for this year, district priority, is the curriculum development process. And in our budget presentation, one of the things that we talked about was making sure that all departments, no matter if you're big or small, has access to high quality, meaningful, relevant professional learning, the opportunity to work together to revise curriculum, the opportunity to go to national conferences, and because kids shouldn't have to wait until a certain department's turn it is to get to go. We believe that all departments deserve that, so that all departments can work on developing their departments and moving them forward, so that we're not in a waiting system. And right now, Jeff and Annie are going to take you through the curriculum development process and how we've created this responsive process to keep us always able to adjust and be responsive in terms of curriculum when needed, depending on our students. So John, if you could take us to the next slide, that'd be slide 3. And I'll turn it over to Jeff and Annie.
So our RPS curriculum development, we want to be responsive to the needs of all of our curriculum, right? So when we get to the larger departments too at the high school, they offer so many options and so many courses that we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to be reflective and responsive to all of those in an equitable way for our students, because by the time that they do reach our upper grades, they are having a lot more options and choices, and we want to make sure that the teachers and the students have what they need. So when we look at this graphic, right, so there's 6 phases in this cycle, and on the next slide we will get into like the details a little bit more about them. But essentially, we're looking at a cycle or a timeline in this graphic per se, but it does rotate each year. So we would start with that, analyzing and prioritizing our needs in order to prepare. And then after we do that, we're also able to monitor and adjust into what has been created from the year before, right? Because there are simultaneous things that do occur. And eventually, once we get into the details, it does end in professional development for our teachers and a review of that work. So John, if you want to go to the next slide, I think it will go into the details a bit better. So Jeff will share with you phases 1 through 3.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Annie. I also just want to point out that this is a responsive process for all curriculum K-12. I know Annie mentioned specifically just the sheer number of courses that are at our high school level with all the electives and levels. But truly the process is meant to focus on all courses, elementary, middle, high school, and even, that preschool, as Linda mentioned as well, really looking at what our responsive review process is going to look like. So one thing to point out is it's based on phases during the year. So we've got our fall, winter, spring, and summer phases, as was on our previous diagram. And the first phase 1 picks up where phase 6 left off. That's where the cycle comes in that Annie was referring to. So once we've approved and looked at the summer curriculum writing from the previous summer, the first phase from September to November is really that analyzing and prioritizing phase. This is the responsive part of the process. So we're going to look at things like our curriculum inventory to see what the status of our documents are. But on top of that, we really want to inform our budget process, right? Because we all know, that the budget kind of will drive a lot of this work and what we can allocate. So we have to be prepared to make a request for curriculum writing. So some of the things that we're going to be looking at are possible if there's new course proposals or pathways, whether that comes from internal, or I think we're aware of some of the new courses that came from the state this past year. We have to be responsive to those things that happened. We have to look at trend and assessment data. So looking at our standardized assessment data and looking to see if a trend kind of points us in a priority area. There could be changes to state standards, right? We have to keep an eye out for that. District priorities, right? The board will set those priorities. We want to make sure that the work we're doing is aligned with the priorities of the board and the district as a whole. And also really talking to teachers and department leaders and building principals about the implementation of existing curriculum, right? There might be a need that comes up that comes from the teachers directly. So we want to pull all that together as we're prioritizing the requests for curriculum writing for the next summer. The next phase is really kind of taking a step back. Annie kind of talked about how there were 2 lanes going at the same time. We've got a lane that's prioritizing for the following summer curriculum writing, and then we still have a lane from the previous year's curriculum that got written. So this phase 2 is really diving back into the curriculum that was written in the summer. And this is where we just really do progress monitoring. We look at, we reflect, we adjust with any written curriculum. What looks good on paper and what gets acted out in real time with a teacher in a classroom with students may look a little different. And so what we wanted to ensure was that there was a point and a phase where teachers and department leaders and building principals, along with Linda, Annie, myself, and Wes, could really dive into what's working, what's not, and make those adjustments to the curriculum documents in real time. For people that are unaware, our curriculum is broken down into really 3 sections, 1, 2, and 3. And without going into a ton of detail, you can really think of stage 1 as the what students are learning, kind of the content, the big ideas, the essential questions. Phase 2 is the assessment. And phase 3 is the learning. So the actual tools and physical things that teachers are using to implement the curriculum. And all of those are things that we're going to be reflecting on, monitoring, and making changes in those documents throughout that December to March timeline. Once that is kind of completed, we're going to go into phase 3, which really is budget dependent. So after the budget is approved and we really know what we're working with, we're going to go back and review the priority status because, obviously we might have had to have made adjustments based on the approved budget. So we have to go back and review the priority status and then make our final decisions. At that point, that is when we're going to go out and start to recruit some curriculum writers. And I think, Annie, this is where, do you want to pick up from here?
Sure. So I want to touch back to phase 2 just for a second. As I was listening to just a thought that came up, it does say December to March, but I want everyone to know that it is ongoing, right? These things come up in department meetings and topics, or if it's a fall course, or if it's like a semester course. I don't want you to think that we miss it just because we put like a date frame to it. But that for our work, it does help us to have that phase of focus too. But phase 2 is actually really very ongoing all the time. So I'm going to skip down to phase 4 here. So that capacity building piece, it's important that we have our teachers writing our curriculum and that it's RPS curriculum. And so that capacity building requires that we train our teachers to engage them in how to write those essential questions, and design that curriculum based on the standards and as a collaborative team with feedback. So there is a training that will be provided to start that work and how to use our documents and our organization system, all that kind of thing. And then phase 5 is the actual curriculum development projects, right? That's written in the summertime. This is the ideal time to have curriculum written. Sometimes there are special projects that do happen where there's curriculum writing that happens throughout the school year. But it can be more challenging to do it that way because of the rest of the year is going on, right? So the summer itself is actually the best time for thinking kind of projects like this and connecting in order to give feedback and support the teachers in that process. So that gets written over the summer. And then once those are submitted, the curriculum writers will submit to the curriculum department to review, and we will assess how that process went, which will also inform phase 1. You'll see how that kind of starts kicking back, right? And our professional development at the opening part of the year will engage the teachers who has to implement that new piece of curriculum. And then throughout the year, we do have professional development that's district-wide, in which we engage teachers either in the curriculum resources that connect to the curriculum that's been written, or they're working with the curriculum that has been written, especially if it's new. So many of these, while they do have dates and times to them, that's more for the security of our brains and being able to manage a system this large. But you will notice that many of it is ongoing. I would say phase 2 and phase 6 is the most ongoing piece of that.
Thank you, Jeff and Annie. So we're happy to take any questions.
Just Corey, if I can, just for a minute. I can't remember, Tina, whether or not you were on the curriculum committee early on, but I know that Rachel was. And I was sitting looking at this slide, which is basically the same content that at the time I didn't have folks in the positions to help, that I provided to all of you, except they just made it look so much better and cleaner. And so I was sitting here, I'm like, wait, that's my stuff, but why does it look so pretty? And I think what's really, really important, and I just want to be sure that resonates with what Annie and Jeff and Corey just described, because there is philosophically a difference between our model and the model that some school districts have, which is like a cycle of curriculum, right? That 5-year cycle, the 10-year cycle. And the power in this model and, the way that the team just described it cannot be understated, because you can get, to Sean's point earlier, is, I'm so glad that we're focusing on curriculum, because with all due respect to those that do impose that type of model or have that kind of model, that's where you can really get stuck, because you're focusing on one particular content area at one particular time. But it's not that time now. We're focusing on these other things. And even though this still may be a priority, we're on to something else. And so, I just want to be sure that this one little slide that's quite pretty and better than mine looked for sure, the power of that work cannot be underestimated, because people will say often, where is our cycle of curriculum? And that's just not the model that, in my opinion, and I think with all the research that's out there, is best practice. And, I'm proud that this group, felt the same way that I felt, a year and a half ago, having transitioned in.
Sean?
Yeah, just playing with mutes. So this model, it seems like it's organically grown here. Does this reflect another district? Have we borrowed, stolen a model from somewhere else, or is this wholly grown here and we're just doing it better?
Well, I think theoretically it was stolen from me from another district, but
we stole it from Susie.
Stolen from me from another place. I think that there are other communities. It might not look exactly the same, but I do think that those communities that are looking ahead in terms of what best practices are probably in some type of model like this. Rather than that cycle that I explained earlier. And I think, quite frankly, I think just the changes that we've seen in the rapidness in which we see them has really evolved what kind of cycle you can have around curriculum, or what kind of structure you can have. It's ever changing. And I think that the strength in this particular model is that you can see its cyclicalness. Even though it's linear on that slide, it's really not, right? As soon as you're looping right back to the beginning. And to Annie's point is, while there's time structures in there for good reason, the reality is we know that there's ever-changing things that are happening, and some of which we want to happen and some of which are just imposed on us. And therefore we have to make the shifts for our kids' sake and our family's sake as quickly as possible. We can't wait till 3 years down the line. So I think it's, there's many iterations that have probably been stolen from lots of different folks, but they're probably slightly different.
Got it.
I just want to add on that it does quicken the pace, but that's what kids deserve. So they do deserve us to be looking across all areas of the curriculum all the time, because it would be easier for us to do one at a time or a couple at a time. But navigating this and looking across and being reflective and responsive each year takes more work, but it's well worth the experience for students who don't have time to wait for another 5 years for us to come back to something that they're experiencing in their classrooms every single day. And I do think that the pandemic and the change, the pace of change that we experienced there also opened up a lot of opportunities for us to work at this pace, I believe. Okay, any other questions?
I'll make a comment, Corey, and I think, oh, sorry, Rachel, go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, I remember that conversation, Dr. De Silva, and I was just so excited that you had just come on board into the district. And I could really honestly say this is my 3rd year on the curriculum committee, and I just see the development of presentations coming out of the curriculum committee. They're so student focused. We really want all learners to do their best work, and I really appreciate that as someone who comes from an education background. Just the teamwork that I see, how you talk about students, you really care. But it's not only that, it's a smart approach. There's vertical alignment now. Mr. Corbishley, I heard you speak about how, your role, how you guys can hone in now more on the secondary schools. So it's so important. And thank you so much for all of your work. And there are budget implications. So this conversation is really good for the community to hear as well. So thank you.
Amy? I agree with Rachel and Sean, thank you. But I also think for people who are not from the, not experts like you're from educational background, I think when you talk about real time and how effective this model, if you will, has been, is how you've adapted to the algebra at the high school, or we've changed writing or I'm going to say it wrong, phonetics, at the elementary. Yeah. But the fact that you're adapting quickly, it's not about, just as you mentioned, it's not a 5-year cycle. It's not waiting, and you're looking at children at real time. You're adapting curriculum resources, whatever, be it in real time, so that our kids can be the best. So I think that's where, for parents who are not from this educational background, I think that's where it kind of connects. Like we'd say, you're not only saying these words, you're actually doing it. And I just wanted to highlight those two that I just remembered. I'm like, that's real time, that's happening now. And it all goes back to the cycle that you shared. It's constant, it's ever evolving. And I think the more conversations we can have about it, the more people will understand, the community in large will understand that it is always there. It has to, you see the needs of the kids, the teachers see the needs of the kids to transfer, and we keep developing so that the kids can grow. Because I think somebody said, and we've always said, is teaching is constant, it's ever evolving, it's organic. So we have to constantly adapt and grow to that. It cannot be something we did 5 years or 4 years, even 3 years from now. Nobody predicted COVID, and look where we are. So just wanted to say that before we go to 9-10 o'clock with me just going on. So
and just just to add, of course, how important teachers and building leaders are in the process, that this is not something that a few people are doing on their own, that this is something that we're doing in full collaboration and with feedback from teachers, because again, none of this works without everyone being in on it, everyone getting behind whatever it is that we believe in is best. We want everyone to be in the same place. And we do feel that this process has allowed that, as well as the collaborative action teams, which we've presented to about the board a couple times already, which gives teachers a very structured opportunity to have a voice and choice in the changes that we're making. Okay, so the last slide, please. So to connect back to our district priority about the collaboration and alignment, out of that comes this work, K-12 in the essential areas. So not just in the core content areas, but also in the essential areas. So we just wanted to spend a few minutes updating you on where we are with the 4 essential areas, which is music, PE, art, and library media specialists. So I'm going to start with music. There was a Board of Ed presentation late this fall by the music department. And you can go back on the YouTube channel for anyone who didn't get a chance to see that. And really what you can see from that presentation is not only the depth of the programming that we have available in the music department, but the result of the collaboration from the spring on that department. Not only do they have aligned curriculum in place that we are in the process that Jeff and Annie talked about just now, that revising process to see how that written curriculum is responding on the ground with real kids. But also, as a result of that collaboration work, what we discovered was that across the district, we did not have an equitable process for replacing instruments as needed. And we did a full, extensive inventory of every single instrument from every single one of our schools. And we found that we had a real emergency when it came to our ability to continue to provide the level of programming that we currently have, not even talking about the level of programming that we hope to have in the future. So that was represented in the capital budget that the Board of Education has already passed. And different structures around that are also evident in the operating budget that we talked about last Saturday. I think it was last Saturday. So our goal for the music department is to hopefully get those instruments in place and then start moving forward with our ideas for getting our kids more access out in the world to share their music. We want to continue to build our choir program, which needs some attention, and really utilize the human capital, the talent that we have in that department. So that's K-12 music. And now Linda's going to start us off with an update on K-5 PE, and then I'll finish with 6-12.
Great. Thanks, Corey. Again, good morning, everyone. So the work that you've been hearing about this morning applies to all of our essential areas in terms of that curriculum review cycle that we have in place, establishing priorities. So just know that this work is happening across all of our essential areas as well. And specifically to elementary physical education, we have developed a department vision that is aligned to our mission and the vision of the graduate. In terms of curriculum development, we have a common curriculum that is being implemented across all 6 elementary schools. We've prioritized and developed essential instructional outcomes that really focus on what we believe our students need at each grade level. And our curriculum is very well aligned with the national standards for K-12 physical education. And these standards provide us with grade level outcomes that really do define what our students need to know and be able to do as a result of a high quality physical education program. Our 6 PE teachers are very well versed on these standards. They've done some really good work in terms of unpacking them, what they mean at each grade level, and then developing a curriculum that makes sense for our students here in Ridgefield. Not only are they working on the what, which is what Jeff talked about earlier, right? That content piece. They're also working on the assessments, developing common assessments, a little bit at a time, one unit or one theme at a time for one particular standard. And then they're constantly reflecting and revising on their instructional practices and what that means, again, in our PE programs across the district. So overall, the physical education teachers have been aligned, they're collaborating, they meet on a regular basis, whether it's on our professional learning days, our early release days, or times that they want to connect or need to connect across the school year.
Great. And 6-12. Physical education is actually working under the guidance of Jarrett Pepe, who's our assistant principal at the high school. We've had an expert in the field, Amanda Stanek, who has worked with our teams a couple times in this process to support them in this revision to reflect the national standards. So the 6-12 team is a little bit behind the elementary team in terms of where they are in their work, but they are very highly engaged in this process. They're collaborative and continuing to build on the K-12 vision and mission that was created for that department. So we are looking forward to having a complete memorialized curriculum for PE K-12 by the end of this year, or at least a draft 6-12 to start us into the next school year. So we'll now move to art, and I'm going to talk about just a couple things K-12, and then Linda will talk about elementary. So one of the highlights of the fall was our collaboration as an art department, K-12 art department, with the Aldrich Museum. It was very special for our art teachers to engage with the art educators there. Because of the absence the last 18 months prior, that made it hard for us to have the kind of collaboration that this district is used to having with the Aldrich Museum. So the K-12 art department got to spend time together working with the leaders, the art leaders there at the museum, getting to know each other as a department, setting their vision and mission, and learning from these art leaders about integrating social emotional learning and art, which is such a natural connection. So that was some PD that the entire department got to engage in 2 times at the beginning of the year. And now they are moving towards their curriculum writing process as a group. But Linda can talk more specifically about the work that she has done with the K-5 part of that department.
Great, thanks, Corey. So our work with the elementary art team is very similar to what I just spoke about in terms of physical education, and also the work that's been done across our content areas. Again, we're really trying to keep that consistency, continuity of the values in all the different essential areas and content areas in the work and the goals that we're setting. So our art department, they have created a vision, K-12, as Corey mentioned, and then we did revisit it as a K-5 team and bringing clarity to what that means for students at the elementary level and how it is well aligned to the mission and the vision of our graduate. In terms of curriculum development, last summer, the team did come together. We spent a considerable amount of time going back to the national core art standards that are our district values that our curriculum is aligned to. And for those of you who may not be familiar with those standards, it is a conceptual framework for art learning, and it's organized into 4 domains. Those 4 domains are creating, performing, presenting, or producing, responding, and connecting. So the team does look at those 4 domains and use those standards to develop a common curriculum, again, across all 6 elementary schools. So they have a solid start to what those standards are in terms of each grade level expectation, and are developing a curriculum in terms of common anchor lesson plans or common artists that they value and would study across the 6 schools. Both departments, art and PE, have created a district-wide teaching and learning website that Corey mentioned earlier. So our PE and art teachers have the curriculum available to them, and not only them, any teacher in the district can take a look at it to see what teaching and learning is happening in those essential areas. And it does, again, provide an experience that is equitable for our students because those resources are available to all of the teachers. And we also have a presence on our our community site in terms of elementary art and PE. If you go to the elementary page, families, parents, Board of Ed members can take a look at our curriculum, what we call curriculum at a glance, and all of the essential areas. So parents, families can get a better understanding of the different themes, the different units, and the learning outcomes at each grade level. And last but not least, exciting news coming from our elementary art department. As you heard at our last Board of Education meeting, or I believe it may have been the budget meeting, art is back in the classrooms. We are no longer delivering art instruction on a cart, and the students, along with the teachers and all of us, are super happy to welcome our students back into the art room. It does bring a different experience when students are able to go into that, art enriched and learning environment and experience those learning outcomes with their teachers in an art studio. Another big piece of news, as you may be aware of, is Art Leap is back in action. We have our enrichment opportunities for all 5th graders in place at all of our elementary schools. And our art team, our teachers, are working alongside our administrators to develop a way to celebrate and share our students' work, our artists' hard work and accomplishments with families, some type of celebration coming this spring. And that's our work with the elementary art teachers.
Yeah. So last but not least, Wes and I are going to talk about the work that we have done with the library media specialists. So we have 1 library media specialist in each of our 6 elementary schools, 1 in each middle school, and we have 2 at the high school. So Wes, do you want to talk about the huge transition that this role has gone through in the last couple of years?
Absolutely. So especially at the elementary level, if you look at the typical elementary environment, and I believe I again said this on that Saturday 2 weeks ago, where an elementary school 18 months ago had a few Chromebook carts, and they went from having a few Chromebook carts to being fully one-to-one, whether it's classroom Chromebooks or take-home Chromebooks. The library has changed immensely. Now they are dealing with a lot more technology. So I think step one is we wanted to make sure that the LMS were comfortable dealing with this high amount of technology. And we've also wanted it to be a epicenter where students can come and have basic issues answered with their Chromebooks. And if there's issues with the Chromebooks, the LMS can take the Chromebook and then hold it for when the tech can come and we can repair it or swap it out. And there's a lot of training involved in that because we came up with a brand new Chromebook categorization system, which has been amazing, but we had to train ourselves on it because we built it. And then on top of that, we had to train them. So there's a lot of training going on with that. And after some bumps and us learning some things and how to deploy these throughout the schools, I would happy to say that we're about 2 months in the full system running at full blast, and it's been doing really well. So it's kind of like step one. Now we're starting to explore what I talked about earlier, which is the digital citizenship. I will say that the middle school and high school are advanced in this. They've been working on digital citizenship for a while now, especially the middle school. They're the ones who first started having Chromebooks with their students, and then they wouldn't have them with the high school in the past, but that was how things used to be run. We don't do that anymore. The issue that we're looking for, and we're going to be working with building leaders, is something we like to call capture time. Right now at the secondary level, 6 through 12, everything is voluntary. A teacher has to volunteer their students to go to the library media. And we're thinking of building in, especially near the beginning of the year, digital citizenship compulsory lessons that they have to go to. We'll figure it out like, every so many in what class they go to the library and get a digital citizenship lesson, especially we think early in the year when they get their devices. We think that'd be very helpful. At the elementary level, again, they're literally starting from scratch and building a digital citizenship curriculum. So right now, Corey and I were exploring resources to use as a launching point to get them started. And we are in the quote unquote preliminary stages of looking at how we're going to deploy a digital citizenship curriculum, not only at the elementary level, but K through 12, make sure it's consistent. And of course, we're also working with department leaders in how, I wouldn't say just digital citizenship, but just digital connections in general. They reach out to us all the time in what might be appropriate. And then again, we work with Linda, Jeff, and Annie on those resources and how properly they could be used within their subject areas. So.
And to add on, always thinking about integration and thinking about the role of the LMS and how we can maximize that role of this talented group to support the curriculum experience of students K-12. So that's in process and in coordination with everyone on this call and our building leaders and content leaders as well. So that was just a quick update for you on the work that we're in process on with K-12 Essentials. Thank you. Any questions?
Rachel?
Thank you, Tina. I just had two things. First, I think your curriculum website is just another example of how you guys have really transformed how the parent community is seeing curriculum. I think it's very thoughtfully designed, and I just wanted to give kudos to this team again for putting that together. The other question I had, and I don't know if you said this or not, but the digital citizenship, so internet safety, I know like East Ridge Middle School is doing a presentation tonight about that. Would that be part of the digital citizenship, like about TikTok and Twitter and how they could engage in positive ways and not negative?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's again, like I said, I believe the middle school and high school they've been working in digital citizenship curriculum since they started implementing Chromebooks, so about 6-7 years ago. And this is part of that kind of sequence that they go through. Again, it usually was a little bit sooner. They did it in-house. I know they're getting an outside speaker to come in today. I'll actually be there. But it's it's something that they have been growing for a while. And I feel the next step at that level is kind of connecting with a capture time, like a time where we could say, okay, these few times of the year, we're going to focus on this, we're going to focus on that. You know, 6th grade focuses on this, then 7th grade, we're going to focus more on this. And like, I even think at the high school level, we'll probably do something like that at the 9th and 10th grade level. And I hope 11th and 12th graders might not need it, right? They're old enough, maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed. But that's what we're looking into. But this is kind of like the beginning of that. This is like the one capture point, is this assembly where like we can get the kids all together and do this safety lesson.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Any other questions? And we're on time, just a minute off. I just want to thank everyone so much. This was our first meeting of the year. I look forward to an exciting year. As I said to the team members, to my committee members for the Board of Ed, I sent you the scope and the goal of the committee. We can always talk about it if you need. I'm willing, you know, if you have agenda items you want to talk about, please send them. We can work on them. So having said that, no other questions. Let's adjourn the meeting on time. I'm glad. This was easy, well, comparatively to the Board of Ed meeting. So thank you, everyone. Have a good